The production manager of the system tells us more about this system. It has two shifts with different number of rework operators. Sealer fails sometimes. The manager also wants to know whether to buy racks to hold the rework queue, because sometimes there are a lot of rework parts. To handle these situations, we would like to modify our current definition of the resources. This will be our model 4-2. Let's handle the easy one first. We change the hours per day from 24 to 16, and we want to run 10 days instead of just 32 hours. In order for the resources to be flexible in capacity, we can use schedules. Click the resource module in the project bar, then we can see all the resources. Currently, all resources are fixed capacity. We only want to change the rework station to be based on schedule. With that change, we need to type in a schedule name. Let's call it rework schedule. There are 3 schedule rules: wait, ignore, and preempt. Please review them. In this case, we choose to use ignore. In the previous step, we only gave a schedule name. We need to actually define a module. Click the schedule module in the project bar. We see that rework schedule is already listed, but without a detailed definition. Let's go ahead to define it. If we click the duration column, we will get Graphical Schedule Editor. Just click and drag to define the capacity for each hour. We only need to define one day. The other days will repeat the first day by default. You may change the default with options. This takes care of the variable capacity of the rework operators. Alternatively, we can use a dialog to define a schedule. We may right-click on the schedule to launch the dialog. Although it is not as straightforward, it can do the same thing as the Graphical Schedule Editor. When the resource capacity is not an integer, dialog is the only option to define a schedule. We will use resource failures to model the sealer station failure. The difference between schedule and failure is schedule is planned and known, while failure is unplanned and happens randomly. The failure module is in the Advanced Process panel. Click it, and then in the spreadsheet view, double-click to add a new row of failure. According to the production manager, we will use time-based failure. We need to specify uptime and downtime. This failure should be attached to the sealer station. We go back to the resource module and find the sealer. In its failures column, we add one row and attach the sealer failure we just defined. For failure rule, we use wait. We noticed that both schedule and failure have rules: ignore, wait, and preempt. This slide provides a description of ignore and wait. This slide provides a description of preempt. Let's go to the next slide to understand with illustration. These 3 figures clearly explain the 3 rules. Ignore will keep going when the schedule or failure says resource unavailable. Wait will push the unavailable period forward. Preempt will follow the resource unavailable strictly. Now we want to deal with the last question from the production manager. How many racks do we need to hold the parts waiting to be reworked? Remember, each rack holds 10 parts, so we want to know whether the waiting parts are under 10 or 10 to 20 range or 20 to 30 range, etc. To answer that, we'll use frequency. Frequency is one type of statistics data module in the Advanced Process panel. Click the Statistics module and go to the Spreadsheet view. Double-click to add a row. Let's define rework queue stats. It will define the ranges and find out how often the number of waiting parts falls into each range. More details in the next 2 slides. If we right-click on the expression column, from the pop-up menu, we can select Build Expression to launch Expression Builder. In this case, we want to know the current number in the rework process queue. The Expression Builder helps us formulate an expression to find that value. We also want to define the range. We define 5 ranges as shown in the figure. From the practical experience, we learned that more than 40 parts waiting in the queue is nearly impossible. Therefore, we only want to define 5 ranges as shown in the figure. We also want to verify how much time the sealer is not working. For that purpose, we can also use frequency with type of state. No expression is necessary in this case, as Arena knows that we want to know the statistics of sealer states, busy, idle, or failed. After simulation run ends, we may see the frequencies report. After fixing all the errors, we can run the model. This is a bit longer with longer run lengths and more days. We may observe new results from this model. Please look into them as we often find useful information from the simulation results. Let's check the resources report. We see that there is instantaneous utilization and scheduled utilization. The difference between these 2 utilizations can be better explained with their formulas. Scheduled utilization should be used when the resource capacity varies.